Another adventure in green screen. You know, I only used this once. I didn't think I'd use it again, but here we are. Though, if you remember the last green screen, I was pretty chubby. It's true. I got fat. But now I'm in a lot better shape, and there's just some stuff I want to cover. Just you guys have been great. Like those of you that have been with me on this journey, all the new people that are coming, and so there's just some stuff I kind of want to talk about and speculate on that where we can see similarities between other species that we know, like primates and humans, and kind of like weave together some ideas that could potentially be true. And kind of just talk about some more in-depth matters about, the North American hominid, stuff that was in the documentary, kind of elaborate on a little bit more on it. Not necessarily evidence, but more my thoughts on certain aspects of it and like what I think. So it doesn't mean that it's conclusive or anything. It's more speculative on my part. So I think it's important to make that clear. So before we get started, I have like a bunch of equipment set up down in the basement. I have the TV over here connected to my computer in order to see, for me to be able to see and like talk about the kind of subjects I want to go over. So some of the things that I kind of want to go over and just like speculate on, kind of throw like ideas out there, different research that's been done, different studies with other primates like gorillas, and of course chimpanzees and other stuff like that, that we can see, I think, some relation between some of the behaviors that we're witnessing with this hominid creature known as Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and we can see that in either like a trace of it in the fossil evolution of different types of hominids and hominids, and we can see it in current behavior patterns that I think get overlooked a lot of the times. So I'm hoping that this will help to kind of like just stimulate those ideas and thoughts and kind of speculate with me. So because if we can create some good speculative ideas, it'll help us ask the right questions. So speculation isn't bad, but I think it's important that we say what it is, and that's speculation. Okay? So the first thing I kind of want to go over, and I'm just going to list them out right now, and then we're going to like dive into them, and not necessarily in any particular order. So is the chimps. Talking about chimps and how some huge chimps have gone so big, they're a troop, that they're considered a tribe at this point. And their hunting methods and how that's evolving. How we can see like evolution like literally playing its part in real time. So I want to go into that and some comparisons to what we're seeing today with Bigfoot and Sasquatch. And then, of course, I want to jump into gorillas, specifically pick on Koko, a gorilla that knew 500 sign languages embedded in her own. Very intelligent, like very, very aware of her surroundings. But the way she interacts, the way gorillas interact with other gorillas, is very telling, and it's actually pretty exciting because you can see similar behaviors between gorillas and this hominid creature. Okay, now before you jump into it's not primate, it's not all this. First of all, primate, we're part of like the primate family. We're hominids. Hominids are gorillas are part of the hominid family. We probably have convergent evolution. It doesn't mean they're any less smart or any more primitive. It's just categorized in a different area, a different genus. So even though they may not be like part of the Homo, like a lineage, doesn't mean that they're any less. So I just want to make that clear right now before anyone gets upset, because I don't know. I see evidence of very, gorilla-like behavior, but I also see evidence that's very, human-like. It's like a hybrid system. And so I don't know. So just before you start arguing me on that. Another thing I want to go over is like primates' short-term memory and the speed at which they process information. So we're going to pick on that, and that'll also, I think, help give us like a speculation of and suggest how these hominids like Sasquatch are so quiet, so fast in their environment, and so sneaky. Okay, so I think that's definitely, we're gonna jump into that as well. And of course, as we go on, anything that any links or anything I have for sourcing, I'll put down below in the description. Then we're going to look at fossil records showing different types of hominids that started, like bipedally versus on four legs. I obviously can't say it, but we have also found, they've also found species that could do both, which for a long time was assumed that you could either be, on all fours, a quadruped. I think I said that wrong again, or bipedal. But they found they have found in the fossil record hominids that could efficiently do both. So maybe touch on that a little bit. And then, of course, we're going to go into some type of cultural learned behaviors of chimps that they've done, and it has to do with making sounds. Literally, getting specific types of rocks and specific types of hollow trees, and just throwing rocks in there, and they're still trying to figure out exactly why. They have had their speculations and maybe some hypotheses, but they don't know for sure yet. And after that, we're going to go into more on the side of what I think and interpret with this with these Sasquatch-like creatures based on my interactions. Now, again, right, this does not mean that I have any conclusive evidence for this. This is just like my feeling on it. This is just what I think might be going on and the direction I'm heading, but by no means does it mean that this is what it is. This is just an opinion, okay? An opinion. All right, and so one of the things I'm going to go over is why I normally have a female present with me when interacting. I think there's something there, and I'm going to explain what I think. And then following that, we're going to talk about communication differences between this hominid species and us, because there's areas where there's similarities, but there's ones where we use completely different communication channels. And then afterwards, we're going to go into kind of the way that this creature operates, the way it thinks, right? The short answer is, it's an ambush predator. It's like a mountain lion. So we need to build our profile around that, around it being an ambush predator, and preferring to be covered and concealed. It may have our anatomy and form, but we were built to run in open spaces, and we'll go into that more, why we feel more comfortable in open areas versus a mountain lion's going to feel very vulnerable in open area because of just the way it operates. And then that's going to jump into some experiments I did, and where I was able to see what looks like evidence of understanding fairness and sharing and dividing up items. So, and then of course, if something pops on my head, and of course if something pops up, and during the middle of the conversation, I'll just throw that in there, and hopefully you guys get something from it and enjoy it. Oh, and of course, since it's YouTube and it's in all fairness, if you guys like the channel, please, subscribe, like it, share, and leave me a comment. I try to be as active as I can. I'll be starting classes again here soon, so I won't be able to be as engaging as I have been in the past, but I will try my best. Thanks. Let's get started. So in places like West Africa and other spots where you have chimpanzees, in some areas that have been studied for a long time, starting to form these large groups of chimpanzees, like 100 or more, where they're being categorized now less as like a troop or band, but as a tribe, because that's a lot of chimpanzees in one place. But we can learn a lot from this. This is what gets me kind of excited, because the truth is these chimpanzees are starting to hunt. They're starting to hunt other monkeys. They've decimated some monkey populations. And you know what I'm also going to do, because I don't remember like all like the key terms and like the species names, is that's what this green screen is great for. As I talk, like it's going to be showing up here the types of monkey names and all that jazz. So these monkeys have been severely like diminished because the chimpanzees will go after them. But what's really interesting is that the chimpanzees, to hunt more efficiently, because they're on the ground hunting a lot of the times, after like they chase the monkeys from the trees down on the ground, they stand up. Okay? The reason they stand up on the hunts is because that allows them to see further. Which makes you wonder, right? In an evolutionary sense, if that continues for a million years, that's an incentive to go bipedal, to hunt meat, to hunt animals, if you're something like a chimpanzee. Okay, so I think that's something like to look at, something to use as an example that might like bring in some reasoning as to why this hominid evolved to be upstanding and like we are. Okay, so it gets even more interesting. And normally for smaller animals like baby monkeys and stuff like that, the chimpanzees will, after they kill it, they'll go for the brain. And the reason they go for the brain, right, is because it has the most like fat, has the most carbs, has the most like nutrients of the whole body. And the reason it's for babies because that's the one they can get to easily and to crush the skull to get in. Now, for the larger adult monkeys, they don't do this, and they believe, obviously this their hypothesis of these researchers. They believe that the reason being for that is because they don't want to like take the risk of taking too long or not being able to get through the hard skull and miss all the vital organs that this may provide. So what do they go for? They go after the liver. And as many people know, the liver is one of the most nutritious organs in any body. Can I see that? Anybody, but any body. Anyway, so that is, in my opinion, really interesting, because we also see livers and other organs of a high nutritional value being just taken out, and like the whole like carcass of like a deer or elk just left there. And I've run into it personally, like when I was working at a tourist attraction up in the foothills, we came across 3 juvenile deer that had been killed recently. And again, no marks of any kind, no knife marks, no bullet wounds, nothing, no claw marks to show that it was attacked by like a predator, no teeth marks around like the neck to show that again a predator killed it. And there were 3 of them, and they were left on the side of the road almost purposefully. And the only thing that was like clearly apparently and done to them was that the abdomen had been ripped open and certain organs removed. Now obviously I was young, and we just said, devil worshiper, Satanist did it, because we couldn't explain it. Like, it just didn't make any sense to myself and the manager at the time. Though in retrospect, realizing what we know now, and finding all these other carcasses of livers and other important organs removed, it does beg the question, right? Are these hominid species just, like going after these organs when things are going well? When they have abundance of food, so they're not forced to eat the rest of the animal, because then naturally they're just going to go for the best parts and just leave it there. And 3 juveniles a year was pretty impressive in my opinion. Obviously, I did not at the time go investigating in to see like if the liver was removed, so I don't know for sure. But the circumstances of those deaths of those 3 deer is highly suspicious, and I'm in the conclusion and confident that it was created by this North American hominid. So that's something we can see these similarities, right? And a lot of animals will go after the liver, so it's nothing new, but we can see in other primates that kind of have a similarity in it just going right after the prey and eating it raw. We can see some similarities, because they'll also just rip the abdomen and go right in there for those important organs. And that's something we're seeing in some of these animal kills that are attributed to Sasquatch or Bigfoot. All right, let's move on to gorillas and Koko. If none of you know, Koko was this gorilla that was taught sign language at a very early age, and she was able to speak, in sign language, and she was able to communicate 500 words in sign language, and even created her own to get the message across. And that's where they learn all kinds of things about gorillas, that there's a lot more language that they speak, a very complex language, just not necessarily through words, more through gestures, smells, and sounds. And so it was a huge revolution in learning more about gorillas and how incredibly intelligent they are, and how incredibly aware and, in my opinion, sentient. But something really interesting that caught my eye, and I started looking into it because I was watching the documentary, and it showed Koko created a word, and she wanted a mate. She wanted to have a baby. She's inventing these words, through sign language to try to tell, her caretakers what it is she wants, which in itself is incredible. And so they get her a mate, and the first thing she does with it, because she's interested, is she throws little stuff at him, like little rocks and stuff, as they're in the enclosure trying to get one another, throwing it at him, running up next to him and smacking it beams and fences, whatever's nearby him on the side, and then running away. And then it goes further on to explain that the reason she's doing this is because she's interested in him. So this is her way of communicating to this other gorilla that she wants to get to know him. And it's a friendly interaction because she wants to play. She wants to play tag. Which, when you think about it, we're like, that's very primate-like, but we're also primates too, and we do that as kids. When you like someone, we, as a child, we'll mess around with them, we'll smack them, we'll throw stuff at them. It's not purely with gorillas. We see this everywhere. It's just an easier example to show it with gorillas. And Koko's a prime example. And then you find out that it's really a primate behavior. It's not something that's super strange. Granted, right, most of these primates, including us, we don't go in hide from that person normally and then try to tell them we like them or we're curious to them by throwing pebbles and messing with them without them being able to see us, because we're built differently. But an ambush predator like Bigfoot that stays concealed all the time, that's just normal for them. But it does show you the similarities, right? Where we get pebbles thrown at us, my own experience, pebbles thrown at us constantly, and even bigger ones to get our attention when we ignored them. Sometimes they'd run up and smack the side of the Jeep if we fell asleep and wouldn't engage them anymore. So these are all tendencies that at first seem really foreign, because they were really foreign to me, because I was like, what do they mean? What is it? But the truth is They're very simple, and we see it all the time. And that's something that, you know, like I it took me a while to realize, because I had to research, other primate behaviors, and then kind of look at myself and my own behaviors, human behaviors, and that kind of gave like a huge opening into this whole new world of kind of seeing this a little bit differently, but seeing connections between the two. Like there's so many parallels there. There has to be some correlation between the two. Okay, so another one. I feel like I'm the meteorologist for Sasquatch forecasting. Here we are. I'm going to forecast Sasquatch, as you can see here. Anyway, so short-term memory and just thinking capacity in general. This tests have been done, especially with chimpanzees, that show that short-term memory in a chimpanzee is 10 times better than a human. They also show that chimpanzees can think 10 times faster than a human. Just think about the difference and how astronomical it is between being able to think 10 times faster than us. Like that's insane. Like that's like superhuman processing compared to a human. Like it's just unbelievable. We can't even fathom being able to think that way because we don't. We articulate, we build systems in our mind. It's a slow process, and then we can put it into a grander scheme. Like we can think huge projects, foresight, and build it. And we've done incredible. Like we've built like this whole modern world that we see before us. But that doesn't. But that's a far cry away from what a primate can do in its own environment, or most animals. And I'm calling it, more like they're more adept for like a procedural world, meaning they're, instead of thinking ahead like the way we do and being able to build this amazing like a thought process in our mind before executing a project, they're processing everything right there in that moment. They're like in the moment, every little stimulus, everything going on, like they're taking in right then and there. Okay, so the way they think is radically different than ours. Because when we try to think procedurally, right, like when we try to react to different stimulus or different stuff in the environment or terrain or something running at us, it takes us a while to think about it. And that's acting quick, like our reflexes, moving in a second. But imagine being able to do that 10 times faster. Okay? And this is, again, speculating. This, again, is speculation. But that might explain why these hominids are so quiet and sneaky. And let me try to give you an example. So when I go walking through the woods at night, trying to be quiet and creep around, and I have to take like little steps at a time and be really careful where I land, so I'm quiet and I don't make sound, and I have to like look around to plan my route. And it takes time, and I'm not very good at it, like people just aren't that good at it, and we make a lot of noise, and in order not to, we have to be really quiet and slow. And that's why it seems impossible that something so huge like Sasquatch can get around relatively, quietly for such a big creature, for such a heavy creature. And that's I think like what really bothered a lot of people that are trying to figure out how it does it. Like, and that's where I think where more the interpretation of paranormal come into play, because it's hard to explain this phenomena. But now consider this. Consider, because we know it takes us, let's just say it takes us like a minute to plan each step carefully, to be quiet, and to be able to build a route in our head of where to go next, like where to step next, where to put our body so that so it makes the least amount of noise going through bushes and stuff. So we've all done this, right? Now imagine you could do that 10 times faster or more, because we don't know. We don't know like the capabilities of this hominid, but we do know that they're fantastic. They're superhuman compared to us. Now imagine being able to do that same route and think all that through to be super quiet, which takes us a long time, but imagine you can do it 10 times, 20 times faster. Now, now you can execute that route within minutes, seconds even, and it sounded quiet the whole time. Does that make sense? So it's almost like you have like an ability to speed up time, except in this case, like the mental capacity processing is sped up, so like all that information coming in can get processed really quickly, and then you can execute a move. But we're just not built like that. We're not built to do that effectively, just because we're built, like for the big picture. And I'm sure there's like actual terminology and words for this, which will be great to eventually one day find out. So I'm excited. But imagine having not only the mental capacity to process the world so rapidly and execute decisions, but also now having the strength, having the super muscular strength to execute those moves, right? So even me, like I've gotten in really good shape, okay? Yeah, I'm boasting. I mean, look at me, modest and proud. But anyway, and even me, like trying to be quiet, like it's hard. Like I have to go slow, and to be quieter, I have to go even slower. And part of it's like my mental capability, being able to process those movements and plan a route. But the other part's like my physical capability, being able to execute planned routes. So even though if we have a good route, if we don't have the strength and dexterity to execute it, we're still going to run into trouble. So imagine having those two things side by side. You're going to be an amazing, formidable, creature like Bigfoot and Sasquatch are. That's how I think, and I think that they're able to be so quiet and so effective and cunning in their environment, in the wilderness, because they have the mental, like, evolution built for a more procedural present world, and they have the might and strength to back it. All right, now let's talk about the fossil records. For a long time, it's been, one of the I guess, cons when people suggest that they've seen Sasquatch not only running highly efficient and effectively on like 2 legs, but also on 4 legs, and that's been one of the like kind of like a thorn stuck in the side of some of these hypotheses and ideas. And that's because for a long time it was thought and believed that the way the anatomy works in the body is that you can either have like a design built for being effective on 2 legs and a design built to being effective on 4. But we've been able to find like fossil species that can do both effectively, like hybrid ones between 2 legs and 4 legs. Now I'm beating myself up, and this is like me being a poor researcher, and I did not save the link in my favorites the way I thought I did for the article. Though I do have some other ones that show this type of differences, the way these assumptions that are being broken, the mold. Like in this example, right? Like you have this hominid, this prehistoric primate that evolved not only to walk on the ground but also in trees. And it was thought, right, like, well, it's really going to be one or the other. They're evolved for trees or they're evolved for the ground, but they're evolved for both because in their environment they had to do a lot of walking, but they also had to do a lot of tree climbing. So their arms and hands were like adapted to the trees, but their feet were adapted to the ground. And so the whole point of that is just to show like that there's all kinds of combinations that for a long time were like hallmarks of the impossible. We're now finding out are real. So like in this example here, you can see that case in point. The main case I'm trying to make for this is that there's evidence of the duality between bipedalism and quadrupedalism. Anyway, running on 4 legs, and we can see that in Sasquatch. So that's something else that I think is slowly being able to to be more accepted because of the fossil records that we're finding showing all these different types of hominid species in different forms and different configurations that were thought, impossible before. All right, so now we're going to be talking about chimps and just maybe other primates that do certain things that you probably wouldn't expect, and that we're still learning about and still trying to understand. Like a certain troop of chimps will actually like they'll find like a trunk, and they'll run around it, find the perfect rock, and they'll throw this a rock like against it or inside of it, almost like a basketball hoop, and it'll make a noise, and they'll get really excited about it, and they're not exactly sure why. They hypothesize, it's for obviously some type of communication, or it's some type of cultural tradition brought down, a way to, like a show dominance. But they're not positive. But the fact is that they're doing it, and it's not necessarily something that you'd expect cut and dry adaptation for a certain specific need. It's like an odd behavior for us now, but the fact that they're doing it makes you wonder, making these sounds and running around, what if there's any correlation to when we hear about Sasquatch or Bigfoot doing strange things like drumming on stuff, smacking stuff, and if there's some type of connection there, like whether it's for communication, like we've all hypothesized, or if it's more for like it's a cultural thing that's been passed down as something that could be more like for fun, enjoyed, play, that has its effects and its reasoning elsewhere. Other things to consider, right? Like orangutans, to sound the alarm, they'll do they'll blow in between, like a leaf, make a noise in order to let everyone know that there's danger around. And so there's all these different types of communication systems being used, and some of them using, like a lot of them using like tools or other, objects around them to get the point across. And if the primates can do it, and we do it, then there's no doubt in my mind that Sasquatch does as well, to some extent, maybe more. I don't know, but I just think that's like a topic to highlight and keep in mind. Little stuff like that we keep finding out about our ancestors and primates in general. All right, now let's get into like female presence. Again, like it's something I'm sure about, but I have just an assessment, an inkling of a hypothesis, and that's a few things. Like one, most of my friendly interactions in the past have occurred with female presence, and that could always just be coincidence, or there could be something to it. But I think what occurs, like when there's a male and a female in this type of setup, is that it's something that they can understand. It's something that they can relate to, because I believe like their whole like family unit dynamic consists, speculating, opinion, consists of an alpha male and an alpha female. But the alpha male, at the end of the day, is like the protector, the one that competes for a mate, the one that competes for food, stuff like that. So I think because we do have similarities, even though we're so different from this hominid species, I do think that what's going on is when you go as a male by yourself, you're already like by default competition, because you're by yourself and you could be a threat to either food, their group, or like females. And I think that's might be an actual prevalent thing that's going on, and why there's a lot more aggression towards men, because we're just naturally aggressive in general than women. And so I think what occurs is that when you do have like a female companion there, and there's clear indication that you're you're together, that's like your mate per se, that that you've already established that you're not interested in competing with them. You have already established your own, like family, your own territory per se. And I think that can be seen in at least my own case, where my former girlfriend in the documentary, yeah, we we are no more. But what was interesting though is I think what allowed us to get that close is that we had established our territory, and that I was in their eyes, I believe, like the alpha, and she was the alpha female, and we were our own unit. And so that meant that I wasn't going to go over and be competition. I wasn't going to go over and potentially be a threat, like a rogue male. And I think that's what allowed us to have these interactions, because I'm pretty sure it was the juvenile that we interacted with most, and that's because my former girlfriend, Madison, she saw one on my thermals, and that's a story for another time. And it was she thought I was a naked man at first that was like 6.5 to 7 feet tall, and it was pretty skinny, freaking out. So we concluded that it was the juvenile, but I think the juvenile was allowed to come to us and interact with us all that time because we were perceived as our own band, as our own troop, so to speak. And I think that's also why the juvenile respected that boundary, not just because the alpha imposed these rules, but also because I was the alpha of my group. And so even though he clearly, like, it seemed that he had a lot more interest in Madison, he kept, like, he didn't go across these boundaries very many times because of me. I believe it wasn't. Obviously, he was this juvenile was physically capable of ripping me apart, but I think the reason he kept himself in check was because I was there, like, because I was the alpha, and I was like that's not, you don't mess with the alpha of another group, especially not with the females. And obviously, I'm just like going on and on about this, but the point of it is I think there's a correlation there. I think that's honestly, like, allowed me to get that much access and get close the way I did. But again, right, like, it didn't happen overnight. I was there for 3 months, every other night, just waiting. And obviously, I didn't know it at the time, but I think that waiting in that one spot established my territory and showed that, and because I didn't do anything like very aggressive, it showed that I wasn't a threat to them. And that's why I think the alpha allowed these interactions to occur for like a month and a half. So it's just something to consider. And if other people have ran into like similar situations, let me know, because I want to know. I want to establish more baselines. If you saw a difference bringing a female along, or if females, like you've been alone and saw a difference between being alone versus with a male accompanying you, I want to know, because I think there's something there. I don't know for sure. Again, as I'm speculating, it's just a guess at this point, in my opinion. All right, now we're going to kind of wrap this all up. These next ones, and that's communication differences and being an ambush predator, because they pretty much kind of explain one another. So the reason we see these communication differences, in my opinion, is because they're ambush predators. They didn't evolve the way we did, running down game and being in open spaces and being able to sweat to cool down to continue chasing our prey. Okay? Like, that's clear, right? Like, they don't live in an open space environment like we do. They live in the woods and in dense vegetation and rough terrain. So they're going to naturally take different routes in adapting to get food for hunting. And that adaptation, is being an ambush predator. And I think that speaks for itself. The fact that they're so large, they're so stealthy, they're nocturnal. All these things are going to help you be an ambush predator. And we have signs that suggest, with strange deer kills and other large game, that they're hunting. They're hunting meat. And they probably are not outrunning it. They're probably ambushing them in groups of 2 or 3. Again, speculating. It's my own opinion. I don't have enough proof yet. But this tells us how their mind operates. This tells us that we should be looking for them not as like looking for another person just because they look, more human-like, but the way you would look and try to search for a mountain lion. Okay? They're not going to want to be seen. Like even if they're not afraid of you, even if they want to hunt you, they don't want to be seen. They're going to turn around and leave if you see them. Like they don't like that because they're vulnerable. Just like when we go into like a dense forest or area where we can't see around and we feel like that there's we see a mountain lion or bear, we feel vulnerable. We don't like that because we're not used to that environment. We like an open space where we can see what's coming far away from us. And of course, because of the way we process, we need time to think of a strategy and a good thing to do. Because the longer time we have to think of a plan, the better off we're going to be. So it's literally like night and day, figuratively and literally, between us and them. Because we're totally different. We have so much differences in those respects, and that's why they stay concealed in the brush. That's why when you look at a mountain lion and you see a mountain lion, the mountain lion's out. That mountain lion could probably kill you. It's an apex predator, and it may not be afraid of you, but it's just not going to attack you head on. That's just not how it's evolved. That's just not how it's been built. Its mind doesn't work that way. Its body doesn't work that way. And so, as we get a lot of times, like, well, why is it going to run away if it's so big? Like, what? Why is it afraid of us? Why is it all this and this and that? To explain, because we're trying to look at it in human terms, the way we perceive ourselves, and we assume that because it looks similar to a human, these North American hominids, that it's going to think the exact same way, and it's going to operate the same way. And so, you think, why is it running away? Like, why is it hiding from it? It's obviously like it could destroy us if it wanted to. Why is it afraid? And it may not be afraid. That's what the point I'm trying to make is that it's just the way it works. It's just the way it operates. It's an ambush predator. It likes to stay covered, concealed, and it's going to stay away from your eyes. Gorillas do it too, like especially male gorillas, and they may do it for different reasons, but we may see associations. Is they don't like to look eye to eye because that's a challenge, and who knows what else that could be. Like when I go to the local zoo here, there's the male gorilla there, and I've practiced. I've tried, I've tried showing my respect, showing some submissiveness, and he'll be in the corner, and it's really interesting the way he strategically located himself. So you can see his body, but you can't see his face. And there's just like these little gap in between the little things he can play on, and you'll see his eyes. He's still looking, but it's hard to see him. Like, and I feel like there's something there that can correlate between us and like the hominid species. But anyway, like practicing these more just giving the gorilla respect, because honestly, we don't know what we're doing when we go to the enclosure and we just stare it down. We try to get its attention. That's like the complete opposite of what you want to do to get the attention of like a silverback gorilla, for example. So the experiments worked, I wouldn't look him in the eye, but I would look at him in the eye for a second and then look away just to let him know that I was trying to get his attention. And then of course, I went down a little bit, kind of showed my hands, and I did this often. I went to the zoo a lot, and he would always come up to me. It would work, and my girlfriend at the time, Madison, she worked there for a long time, and she says she's never seen him engaged so much like that. So obviously that type of interaction worked, and every time he'd come up to the window, of course, everyone would come up to him with pictures and staring him right in the eye, and then he would just leave again back to his corner. But the point I'm trying to make is it's a much, much different communication channel being used there, right? Like, that's not the way you or I would go meet someone else. Like, that's just not the way we communicate. That's not the way we initiate things. We like to be in an open spot. where we can see, and we like to be fortified, um, and be able to see what's coming and be able to assess it before doing anything. But not with other like primates, not with other species, and especially not with Sasquatch, where it's probably not afraid of you, and it's probably not afraid of you, but it's just the way it works. It's just the way it operates. Like I don't know. I feel like I've beat a dead horse by this point, and between the communication differences and the reason they're like that, because it's a whole different beast. Sure, there's probably a lot of convergent evolution between their adaptations, their anatomy, and ours, but at the end of the day, they're ambush predators, and so they're going to think much differently than we do. At least that's what I think. You could definitely like leave a comment, an opinion below. Okay, last one, and then we're done with this video for today. It ended up being a lot longer than I expected, but hopefully it'll be valuable to those that are looking and trying to figure this mystery out. And that's a story that I feel like revealed some interesting aspects of this hominid species. So one of the experiments I carried out during as the pebbles were being thrown every night was I went to the area where the pebbles were being thrown from, and by this point, the whole area you could see something was always there, where like the stick breaks had been broken as like I believe a boundary marker. You could even see like little holes where it was going through the grass and looking for like little pebbles, and a little tidbit. The way it looked is almost as if like the finger goes like this in a little circular motion, finds something, and then brings it up. And I don't know if he used the thumb or if it's just bringing it up like this with its finger, but it had like some characteristics that made it look like that's what was going on. Anyway, so I put apples out there, and I wanted to see what would happen. And what I did is I left it in the net, 4 apples. You know how it comes like in like little green netting. I tied it to a rope about 6 feet up and about 1.5 feet from like a branch. So it's kind of extended because I didn't want to make sure like no raccoons or other animals would be able to get to it easily. And I opened up the top and I bit one of the apples to show like that it was edible, because I didn't know if they knew what apples were. But that'll be a little funny later. So the pebble throws continued every night for maybe 2 or 3 days, and nothing. It wasn't touched. The apples weren't touched. And I started thinking that maybe they don't know that what apples are. Maybe they've never seen them before. Which I'll just give you the spoiler now. Turns out the area I'm in every other year has like a bunch of wild apples that just come like every other year. So they definitely knew what apples were. But that means that there was another reason they didn't take it, and that we can consider and speculate on that later. But basically what ended up occurring was on like the second or third night, the next day, 2 of the apples were missing. 2 of the apples were missing, and the other 2 were left in there with no like apparent evidence of anything like, you know, clawing its way in or anything like that. And they were just left there, which was exciting. I mean, raccoons could have been a possibility, but we were getting the pebble throws, because raccoons have been known to leave food there and they can just come back and get it later. But what was more impressive was that there were 2 left for us. 2 were taken and 2 were left. And I say for us because I wondered why wouldn't they take all of them? And I think it's one of 2 things, and they might be both prevalent. And that's, you know, like that. 1, there were 4 apples in total, so they were dividing it equally. Or 2, they were leaving the 2 apples for Madison and I. So there's some evidence of some type of fairness, if I'm interpreting it right. Like if it was left for us, and that was the reason, was sharing. Understanding the value of sharing and understanding the value of like being able to divide equally. So again, right, I don't know if it necessarily was because it was divided equally, or just because it was able to count between two of us and take just two so that we could have the other ones. But that was an amazing revelation to be able to see that this was understood, and it gets more exciting. So the next night, after already being aware that the two were taken, the pebble throws start again. And so I get out of the Jeep, and I have more apples. I have like a freezer in my Jeep. So I take an apple out, and I go up to my perimeter where I'm willing to go to the tree line. We're still, maybe, I don't know, maybe 40 feet or so away, maybe 50 feet from where the pebbles are being thrown from. Which again, amazing. Like, these pebbles were small, and they were being thrown from such a far distance with such accuracy that it boggles my mind even now. But that's, again, with the speed of the mind and the strength combined. I think that's how that occurs. But it was really something. So anyway, the pebbles stop, and I try to let him know, and I'm assuming it's to him, that the apples are for him, and I make gestures for you, apple for you, and I show that I already have my apple, and I do that maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, and it just, after that, it just, sorry, my I'm getting a lot of text messages. Wow, okay, it's a little, we're just gonna wait. Let's see. It's text messages are definitely interrupting. Anyway, sorry about that. So basically, I let him know that you can take this, and I climb back into the Jeep, and the pebbles have stopped. There's no more pebbles right now, and for 15 minutes, no pebbles. And then, what's really exciting is on top of this hill that where I found evidence where they stay. It's another speculative opinion on my part, but I think that's where the alpha female stays. But anyway, so up on this hill, I hear almost like a whoopee, whoopee. I can't even describe, but it sounds almost like a whoop, but almost like a monkey saying it, it was really excited, and it was pretty loud. And then you hear during this woo, or whatever it is, you hear this woo, and it's a really strict and straightforward woo, and it's not nearly as loud as the other one, and it just stops. There's no noise, nothing. Everything just goes quiet, and I feel, and again, I'm entertaining. I'm just entertaining, just because for fun. But I feel like he went up there, this juvenile, with the apples, excited, showed his mom, and was so excited, he made a noise, and his mom was like, "Shh, be quiet." Again, right? I don't know if that's actually happened, but that's what it made me think about when I heard it. So there you go. There's some thoughts and ideas. It maybe helps you and gives you a better idea of kind of what I'm going through, my thought process on this, and some of the interactions and what I thought they might have suggested. Of course, it's just a lot of it is speculation, and a lot of it is being able to see possible parallels between known species and what we see with these Sasquatch-like beings. But let's not forget that this isn't definitive at all. Okay, and I want to home that really push that in, that a lot of this is just good speculation, I would say, and there's a lot of evidence that suggests very compelling evidence, but a lot of it, especially what I'm bringing to the table, is circumstantial and anecdotal. So just keep that in mind. It's that this is more a speculative video, and just so you have an idea of what I'm kind of my opinion is right now, moving forward. Obviously, it can change in a second based on new information and new evidence presented. But right now, it's kind of what I'm leaning towards. It's not. I can't tell you that's what it is for sure, because I have no idea. I just have as many questions as you, like, I just, because I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. I just know, like, the interactions I've had and what I think they might mean. But that doesn't mean that's what it is. So thank you for staying through this video. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. I don't know what I'm going to be able to find up here for B-roll for all this other stuff that I've just been chatting about. But again, if you guys like it, leave a comment. Leave like your own experiences, because the more experience that you're able to let me know, the better it is for me to build like baselines of behavior for these creatures. Like I really would love, for example, to find a whole trackway in snow that goes through the mountains and just follow it, and because that's going to reveal so much about this hominid, because the way it walks, how it uses the terrain, how it navigates through, tells us how it thinks. And that for me like is super like exciting. Like it just really excites me, because that would be like for me a to actually be there and see it. Oh, because it would show you, right, like where it likes to hide, how it likes to use the terrain, which routes it likes to take, what it prefers, you know, where it stops, why it's why it's stopping, where it's looking. It would just it would answer a lot of questions and really help understand it better. Again, okay, I'm nerding out now. Yeah, like, subscribe, share, you know, and just leave me your thoughts. Thank you so much, and hopefully you like the future video content. All right, take care. Till next time.